Hello, welcome back to this week's edition of the Reflection videos. We're going to talk today about something that I think is just really interesting, and to be quite honest with you, I'm not even sure why I'm so interested in this. But the topic is the movement towards free and open source software. I think it's just such an interesting idea, and it's certainly a growing movement, and there's a lot of interesting things we've talked about so far and seen in other videos and other things. And today I'm going to talk about, in particular, kind of a reflection of a talk that I watched, part of a video recording by Dr. David Wiley, who is a professor at Brigham Young University, and among other things, he's been classified as an edupunk. He's really one of the leaders in open education and open source movement for use in education. And he recently gave a talk to members of the AECT, and he did it through the Adobe Connect. And I'll put the link in the recording. You should see the link here so that you can also watch it as well, because it's a really interesting video. And just spend a few minutes just talking about some of the first things that he mentioned. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is he started off with this video talking a little bit about the history of, or the role that technology has played in terms of education throughout history. And he talked about really kind of one of the first things that technology did was broadening access to information. And we're not talking the last couple decades. He actually started off talking about centuries ago, before Gutenberg invented the printing press. And he talked about how for centuries, the most common pedagogical framework for the day was that lecturers should read a book very slowly, read a text, and that the best way for students to learn that was to copy it down word for word. And this was very commonly held notion for centuries. Then later on we get to the printing press. That certainly was a huge technological impact for education and, in the whole world, because this information was now able to be printed in a book that could be mass-produced, and many copies could be made at one time. And one of the things that he then continues to talk about is how education continues to change, and many of the ideas and concepts that we have as far as pedagogy or educational framework simply revolve around what educational tools we have. And that may not necessarily be the best idea. I like the thought that you shouldn't necessarily make a training video just because you have a VCR and a camera there. That may not be the best training or the best education. So we really got to think about, why are we doing the things that we're doing. Dr. Wiley then continues on and talks about, he gives what he calls the 4 R's of open educational resources, and obviously he's jumped forward quite a bit here, now talking in more current times, talking about the 4 R's of open educational resources. And the first one is reuse, or in other words, that the open educational resources allow you to reuse or make verbatim copies, make identical copies that you can distribute. The second one, and kind of jump the gun there a little bit, is the redistribute. You can reuse them, make copies, and then you can freely share them with others. You can redistribute them. That's the second R. The third R is you can revise. Now this again is a very different approach for many printed books or many copyrighted articles that you have to purchase. But with these open educational resources, you can revise or adapt high school materials, for example. You can adapt those, take the existing ones, adapt them, revise them, and make them more suitable for a middle school audience. And then the last one, again, very interesting, that with these open educational resources, you can remix them. We've seen different ideas like mashups with other materials. You take one idea and you combine it with something else to see if you can't get a new educational experience out of it. And really the underlying theme with all this, or the underlying issue here, is copyright. And one of the recent developments over the past couple decades is what they call the Creative Commons license. And he makes sure to distinguish this and says free does not equal open, because just because something is free doesn't necessarily mean that it's open. You may be able to get something for free, but you can't necessarily remix it and redistribute it and adapt it and remix like you can with an open educational license. And what you look for is the Creative Commons license. And an interesting tip that I didn't know about before is you can actually search in Google. When you're doing an advanced search, one of the options talks about you can actually search for just items that have the Creative Commons listing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Dr. Wiley then continues on and talks about that really what the role of technology in today's society, especially in education, should be is capturing, storing, managing, and then visualizing data. These are the things that the computer excels at. This is the thing that it is amazing at. It can capture and store and help us manage. It can create charts to help us visualize data. All of these things that it's difficult for the human mind to do, but a computer can help us access that. For example, if we have technology that we could develop, that we could have learning management systems that help monitor how long does a student spend on each page, how much time do they spend doing their reading, are the assessments too hard, are the sample questions or quizzes that they're going through, are they too difficult? These are the things that we should be able to monitor real time, yet most of the time we're not doing hardly any of this in education. We use technologies to hold chats or forums or things like that really they're trying to just replace the human interaction in an online format. And while I think that is important, there are other things that the online form or that the computer should excel at that the human simply can't do very well. And that's some, again, of these managing and visualizing data. We should be able to generate tons of data with regards to education so that we can then really mine through that data and understand what's exactly going on. He talks a whole lot more in this video, makes some really interesting points, but the final thing that I want to talk about in this video that I just thought was so spot on is he said that basically what he called is the anti-role of technology, and that is the anti-role of technology is replacing the human-human interactions with human-machine interactions. He says this is absolutely not what technology should do, not what computers should do. And to quote him, he says, "No efficiency, scale, or other argument justifies taking people out of education." And it was a real I guess relief to hear him say that, because he is such a strong advocate of technology and open educational resources, but to hear that he is firmly grounded on saying, but wait a second, the role of technology is not to replace teachers, it's to help teachers. Certainly I think that the role of teachers will change in the future, and it will be a little bit different, maybe more of a mentor, maybe more of a guide. And he talks a lot about the Open High School of Utah that just started this year, and how the curriculum is 100% online, that students can go self-directed through the curriculum, but the role of the teachers, they have full-time paid great teachers that are highly qualified, but their role is to look at the data and the information that they're getting every day, and then to be able to make judgments on which students need extra help, and then to get on the Skype, get on the computer, chat with that person, see how it's going, and really, it becomes more of a one-on-one tutoring mentor model than, a teacher with 35 students or 40 students. And that's what the role of technology should be, according to Wiley, and I certainly agree that we're not trying to replace teachers, but we're trying to help teachers. We're trying to make it so that the face-to-face time that teachers can have with students can really be maximized. And it can be for, getting some of those human-human interactions that can't be quite replicated, and many things can be replicated online or blended learning. But there are many things that we need to look at and rethink the way that we are trying to push technology in the future. Because I certainly think that there is a place for teachers, and it's a wonderful place, and we need great qualified teachers, especially in teaching our youth. And so I just really, I like this idea of the open educational resources. I love the idea of information that we have access to, basically real time from people all over the world. And I just think it's so interesting. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's little reflection video. Next week we're going to be talking some more, so please come back and we'll see what topics we have that we can discuss next week. Please feel free to email me with any other questions or leave comments here on my YouTube page. But thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.